Hello guys and welcome to another video. This one took a really long time. Sorry for the delay, but it's going to also be full of difficult but promising techniques. So stay tuned and watch the full tutorial. Guys, do you want to join a really nice server? We have tons of different channels. We have effects, modeling, loop dev, compositing. We will have resources for every type of discipline. So hop in and have fun. I also have a Patreon page where you can support me. I have every single file, I have polls, I have even some tools, guidance. So if you are interested, you may have a look. Hello guys to this amazing file. This is going to take a while, but it is going to be totally worth it. You will learn tons of things here. So let's begin with the basics. First of all, these are two mountains which I created. This is the background mountain and this is the foreground mountain, which is going to be broken down. Let's begin with the foreground. So as you can see, I created this grid. I didn't change anything. It's 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. I just added a noise. Then I added a camera. And this then is being converted to polygons. This is the mountain we will be using. I usually use this to know where these nodes are heading. As you can see, this one is going right here. Okay, then I decided to group this, poly extrude it a little bit, and to draw a curve on top of it. This will be our main fracture. Then a simple resample, so we can have points better distributed into the surface. Next, going here, I did a mask by feature and I scatter a ton and a ton and a ton of points. Why, you ask? Because I really want to have a lot of rocks on top. This is going to be handy later on. Then I used a simple frustrum. This is a tool I have on my Patreon. If you guys want it, what it makes is it creates basically a frustrum. From this, it has a box. It has a group which is the front, a group which is the back. Then I promote this to points. Then I use a primitive to basically decide how big or small I want this box to be on the X and Y axis, right? Then with this, what I'm doing here is to extruding the back and the front based on these values. This is going to be how far the frustrum is going to go. And the magic happens here, which everything is being aligned by this point bob. What you got to have in mind is that this has to basically be set as follows. 0.5, so it's on the surface at the left side. Then 0.5, so it's at the top on the y-axis, and negative 0.5. So on the axis, this is how it should be looking, being x positive, y positive, and well, basically on top of the ground. And the x and z, everything has to go right here on your on your coordinates. This will allow us to make this frustrum with the following. You only need to use from NDC, grab the position and here. Then you can use anything in here to make your frustrum. For example, a Boolean or group and delete. This is all it's doing. As you can see, this frustrum working perfectly. We don't want to waste resources. Then I time shift this because I only need one frame because the camera is going forwards. I'm using the camera origin, which is this point. I'm basically grabbing the cam and the cam origin from here. And I'm using the distance from all the points. I'm grabbing the distance. If I were to say, I want to see the distance, and then I turn it on and I dial it to something like this, we will see that this is ramped from the point of the camera onwards. And I can remap it. If I remap the distance, again, now it's set to 1. This point is 0 and this point is 1. This is a perfect ramp. This will be used later on. From this mountain, all I'm doing is to create a name. That's all I'm doing. I'm creating the name and the name original. I want to have both because I want to store how it was called before breaking it. That's my height field, the one I'm going to break. And I'm just doing a poly reduce so I can have a good collider in the case I need it. I'm transforming it downwards a little bit. As you can see, this is going to be the ground. And extruding this is the polygon and this is the collider. These are the settings. It's only collision and a polygon. And this is the mountain at the front. The mountain at the back, if you look from camera, it's behind this. It's a simple noise. This is another noise. This is a distort by layer with this displacement scale. This is basically applying one layer on top of the other. And I'm blurring this. Then I'm using an erode to add a little bit more detail. Hide fill my mask by feature with these settings. This is, I think this is from, I just put it in there and it worked. I blur the mask with this and I add a little bit of terrace with these settings. I'm just messing around. I'm not doing pretty much anything. And then I'm displacing only where I want, which are these noises. I'm applying another height fill erode. Let's work with this, which is stopped at frame 10. There is a little bit more detail here and there. And I'm converting this to a height fill, to a polygon. This is the mountains at the back. This is from camera. As you can see, almost nothing is going to be visible. And I'm transforming this a little bit, putting it a little lower so this is not visible, and a rest position to have the rest value which is going to be useful in shader level. One last thing is that I had this geometry which I created. The link will be in the description of the Patreon. You can have it too, which is Gaius from Shadow of the Colossus. I'm enlarging it so it fits somewhere around this geometry. Then I'm splitting this part which is being rotated here. I'm bending it a little bit with these settings. I just did a bend and I started tweaking this a little bit, as you can see. So it's pointing a little bit more to the camera. Then I'm transforming this piece, merging them, and a rest position. Again, useful in render. I really didn't care about this. I left it as it was, with this piece flying to. And this was the mountain part of the video. Moving into the secondary, this is going to be a little bit more, as you can see, crunch, but at the end of the day, it will be very handy and very useful for the techniques. So let's begin. I'm grabbing this line, which we created before. Let me just display a little bit the height fill. Where it is, this height fill. I'm grabbing this line, and what I'm doing here is to polywire it, BDB, smooth it, convert to BDB, a little mountain here. As you can see, these are the settings of the mountain. I just wanted to create a little bit of noise, nothing the other world. I just disabled the vector along normal, and another mountain to make it even a little bit more interesting. I BDB from polygons, and I convert this back again, and then I transform it back roughly where I want it to be on the camera. As you can see, this is the main structure, which I would have, if I were to do this again, I would add way more detail, because this is noticeable in the final structure. So beware, use more detail than I did. Don't make the same mistake as I did. Then I'm grabbing this height fill, a little bit of normals on the vertex, rest position, and I'm doing a Boolean fracture. This rest position was meant to add a mountain here, to add more detail. I was getting glitches due to this technique, so I didn't use it. If you add a rest position, you add a noise, and then you restore this with extract rest, you will get more details. I was getting more mistakes in the final geometry, which was unacceptable. Okay, so the good thing is that on the Boolean fracture, since we already have the names, as you can see, the Boolean fracture, what I'm doing is to append with this prefix and do not compute interior normals.
I just want this to be a surface, the first geometry, and the second, I don't want, I want no polygons. You want to have this geometry on the edges, as you can see, split. You don't want n-gons. And if I take a look at this, if I were to click on the name, we will see that we have 3 colors, A, B, and C. And I'm grabbing the outside group. If we were outside, if we were to press S here, go here and select by group, this is the outside. I don't know why I have it, but it's useful later on, I believe, to select the top part of the mountain. Moving on, here is my fracture. This is what I liked, and I'm measuring. This is a measure fracture based on the area. I'm basically splitting the middle from the big parts. These are the big parts, this is the small part. All I'm doing here is to use a measure area. I'm calculating the area with this per piece, and with this value I'm then splitting here, now this volume, the area based on a threshold. The threshold is this number, and then I'm splitting left with this guy. This is the small and this is the big guy. And as for now, the only thing I want to do here is to split the left guy even more. So I basically added another line, I mean the same line, I resample it, I transform it, I pull extrude it upwards with this transform front with these values, this amount of divisions, and I added a mountain. Then this is the fracture I created. As you can see, this fracture is better. I would still have added more detail at this stage because it lacked detail at the very end of the product. This is unacceptable, and this is also unacceptable. But still, what's matter here is the techniques. Well, then per piece, what I did is to do a for each named primitive, which I have the rest position. I added a little bit of noise. This might add bugs, so I do not recommend this approach. If you're and if you do it, please don't go beyond the stage until you are out of glitches on the geometry. So what I did is to scatter about those points, Boolean fracture this. I couldn't add more detail because otherwise I was getting more errors, and then I reset this. As you can see, it basically adds a little bit of variation. If we disable this is straight, this is a little bit curved. It's nice. This is what I did per piece, so it happens 2 times. And here what I did is to do exactly the same. You can decide where you have points. In this case, I only want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. Then you merge these guys together. As you can see, we have mountain and these 2 guys. I still keeping the origin points. So far so good. We created a surface, we split it where we wanted, and we added more detail. Moving on, this is to add more fractures. So we grab this, we split with the small because we had the group from before. Same deal. Divide this. Be careful with these things. At the scatter, fracture, rest position. Result, something like this. Pretty nice. Let's do this per piece. You will get something like this. If we merge both, this is the result. Before, after, a little bit more fractures. Moving on, what we're going to do here is to create what's good for destruction. This is a little more expensive, again, per name primitive. We have all these pieces, as you can see, as for now, which are, let me see, 50 unique pieces. So we are going to go per piece. We are going to match size this to the center, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, to the center, roughly. We're going to do a couple of things. Firstly, let's group the edge. First thing, let's do with the labs. You got to have labs here installed. You got to make a group. In this case, group 4. I'm in a line for the group. And the only thing it is to grab these unshared edges and use edge. Then I have this, which I'm saying, hey, you are not big, so you are 0. And then I'm saying, hey, if you are big, you are 1. That's basically it. Only the pieces which are big are going to be turned into one. So let's go here. If we're going to do double extrude right here, and we're going to select this match size, and we're going to basically transfer all the primitive groups, because some, I don't know why I couldn't get my attributes back, my groups back, so I just got it pretty much. So I got back my small primitive groups from here. Small is 1, big is 0. If you are big, you are 1. But this is decided here in this part, it's decided. Then I'm doing this. Hey, extrude. Hey, transfer the big primitive. And since this is basically grabbing everything, it's a way for me to get back the attributes I wanted, because this is going to be decided based on what I have here. If I have the attribute this one set to 1, it means that this is a big piece. Since this is not a big piece, it's going to just grab the left side, so the group which is small. Of course, there are easier ways to do this. I decided to do it this way because I don't know, I just wanted to move on. Moving on, I reversed this poly extrusion because it was broken. Then I multiplied the normals by -1 because this was not working as I expected, and I solved it like this. And what I'm doing is doing a distance from geometry. And this distance from geometry looks something like this. If we select this one and we move onwards, this is pretty much the threshold we have. In this case, I'm promoting the distance to the distance max. I'm using a remap because I want this to be automatic. And I'm saying, hey, transform my distance to distance from 0 to the maximum distance of the detail, which is done here. And now if I look at the distance will always go on each piece from 0 to 1, but I'm using this remap. If I were not using this, it would look something like that. So this is what I want. I'm going to group all the edges. I'm going to measure the curvature of these guys. If we export the color, it's something like this, roughly. This is nice with these settings. And then what I'm also doing is, hey, create a mask, which is based on the distance by the convexity plus the concavity. This mask will look something like this. Basically, nothing at the top and a little bit of noises on the edges, because I want to blur the edges, as you can see. This is because I want better noise. If I have this noise, what I'm doing is, hey, on the extrude front and the extrude side, which I got from here, please add this noise and blend it with the distance, so from 0 to 1. Why did I do this? Because I don't want the interior surfaces to go upwards. I don't want them to go beyond the surface, otherwise I would have clipping issues. And I'm blurring pretty much everything based again on the distance. If I were doing this, even the top part would go away. I just wanted the bottom part. I'm regenerating the normals of only these two pieces. I don't want to do anything with this, with the top parts. And then I'm basically adding another mountain for the bottom part. Exactly the same extrude side and front. This pin based on this normal. If we were not going to have normals, it would be a little bit different. Well, in this case, it's the same. Strange though. And then I'm match sizing this back to where it belonged, which is here. As you can see, this is what we have at the beginning, and this is what we have at the back at the end of the day. Very nice. This is a nice method. And if we do this per piece, let's let it work. It's going to do this 50 times. Now that we have this 50 times, we can see how it looks at the bottom. This is my geometry. This is very nice, very nice. This is how it looks with the name. If you take a look, everything it's its own piece. Moving onwards, let's go here. This is the same node of the destruction. I'm measuring everything. This is a very nice trick, guys. Please remember this. What I decided to do is to split based on the small pieces and based on the big pieces, which are these ones. These are two different pieces, A and B. So what I did is to, hey, transfer the name of the big pieces to the small pieces. Unpack it and transfer the name. As you can see, this is how it looked. This is how it looks now. You might be seeing the pattern now. And I'm promoting this back to primitives. And now this is how it looks. I'm merging the small pieces where it used to look something like this. And I didn't quite like how this was resulting. So I'm now merging the names. This is extremely useful when you don't want to lose some small pieces, but you also don't want to delete them. So you merge them instead of deleting them. And of course, I'm saving this to disk. This is a good place to save it. I just saved it with the last file cache. Later on, I'm saying, hey, if you are big, the name you should be adding big. But if the name but if you are not big, you should have small. And please add a new name original, which is the same as the name right now. From this moment onward, I want you on the name of each one to have this small attribute. Well, in this stage, we will decide over the animation of the proxy. For the animation, I was looking a lot, and a friend of mine, actually, I will leave the link down in the description, did the Rebel Way course and showed me a good technique, which I wasn't doing. I was actually transforming piece by piece with an edit node. Oh my god, please don't do that. Please use the KineFX tools, which are incredible. This is the destruction, as we can see, and we're going to iterate over all of the pieces. So what I did is to convex hull this piece, transfer the name and the name of each one, transfer the name and the name of each one. In this case, I'm just assembling it, and then I'm just having the extraction of the point based on the name of each one. In this case, this is the centroid, this is the point called centroid, and this is the geo. Merging these two guys. With one, I'm going to move the pieces, with the other one, I'm going to visualize it. I don't know if this is purely necessary, I wanted to have this functionality. Then this is the group point, and I'm actually grouping this. So I have big and small saved here. Then what I'm doing, saying, hey, my name of each one, I want them to be the same as name. I could have done this here, but I don't know why I left it here. Then I'm splitting. I'm splitting based on the centroid, and I'm splitting based, well, one was not the centroid. I don't know why I did this exactly. Okay, I know why I did this. Perfect. Because later on I'm going to see on a point deform how this looks. In this case, this is a rig pose. As you can see, if you press enter, these are some animations. Very nice. How do we see this? With the transform pieces. If we add the geometry, which is this one, and the pieces, which are this one, and the static, which is this one, you will see this moving. This is what I want on the big pieces. Nothing else. This is a good pre-visualization, guys. I'm going to delete this. This is based on the name, so it should remain equal. Yeah, you shouldn't have problems with this if you decided your naming convention properly enough. This is the proxy. I'm going to create the proxy. So this is the output destruction. I'm going to go per piece. I'm going to transform this a little bit. This is the center, and I just decided to shrink it a little bit. I did a BDB. I BDB to spheres. I actually copy these things to the primitives. Basically, each sphere has the same naming convention, and I'm transferring also the group. And I do this per piece. I have all these proxies for the first part of the simulation. Then I'm splitting this again based on the middle, based on the big pieces, doing the same deal. small and big. Why I'm doing this? Because I want the middle parts to move with the big guys. So I'm transferring the name, I'm unpacking, and I'm promoting this to primitive back again. You will see in a moment what I mean. The ID is basically the same as the point number, which I have a lot. I don't remember why this is. I don't think it's necessary. So with these two guys together and using taking advantage of the naming convention, we can move these small pieces based on these big pieces. If you go here, this is out of destruction, and this is my assemble. If you go here with animation, we have a couple of points, as you can see. These are the points, and you will notice not every piece is used, only the big pieces, right? So what's going on here? What's going on is that these pieces are being transformed. The same as the comic school. This can be beneficial in the sense that we can pre-visualize this really nicely. This is the animation, right? And this is the animation. This is a time shift. And I'm creating some constraints. This is only for the constraints. What I'm doing here is unpacking the geometry so we can have all the points, blasting everything that's on, not the inside. As you can see, I'm only leaving the extrude side. I'm promoting these 2 points, the big 2 points, and I'm scattering everywhere here. Connecting the adjacent pieces everywhere with these points. And then this is the key part. I am detecting with this code, which you will of course be able to have it in the description. I'm detecting what vertex, from each of these primitives. You have vertex A, vertex B, vertex A, vertex B, vertex A, vertex B. So basically I'm grabbing to which primitive number this is from. I'm grabbing what point is from which vertex. So if you have 2 vertices, you have 2 points. If you have 2 vertices, you might have only 1 point, and I want to know which point that is. And then I'm saying, hey, give me your name from the first point and give me your name from the second point. Then if the first point name is the same as the second point name, I want to remove that primitive. What I mean is that primitive is connected from the same piece to the same piece to the same object. I want to delete everything. So all these, which are the same color because I'm visualizing the name, will disappear. I do not need them. And I'm cleaning all these points and only having connections, nothing else. I'm using a facet on unique points and I'm primitive this to 0. This is only shrinking the primitives to 0. So I have an anchor point right in the middle. I'm then saying, hey, you're going to be glue, which is not true. I'm just naming it. We're not going to use glue. The strength is going to be 1, just in case. And these are my outputs. I really don't remember why I promote this to this. It's probably not necessary. So this is my first animation. This is my animation, out for animation with name reach. What I'm doing is promoting these 2 points. As you can see, I have this name reach 1, which is going to be very useful, but extremely useful later on. So let's move forwards to this last part of the first animation. We're almost done. This is my first animation, as you can see here, and I'm doing the resource. The resource is quite expensive, but let me show you what it makes. Basically having a lot of points with the names, and as soon as this starts moving, it's going to create a couple of variables. Firstly, I want to reset this. I want to grab the rest position from this part. I'm grabbing it and I'm transferring it back to the same point. Secondly, I'm extracting that rest position and then I'm deleting everything whose age. So when it's activated, let me see if I can visualize this. This is the edge. There we go. If we do the edge, you will see it will start working. I'm not going to visualize it, and now I'm going to visualize it, and you will see this is starting to get separated, and just roughing the rest, and I'm applying the rest. I want this to stay in place. Then what I'm doing is to say, hey, if your edge is less than 0.1, so you still didn't move, remove. That's all it. And the P scale will be a multiplication of this shape based on the edge from 0 to 2 of h to 0 to 1, and plus a multiplication of 4,000. I mean 400. So at the beginning they will be small, then boom, they will get bigger, as you can see. This is a good trick to then do a scatter and transfer the edge back here to these points. As you can see, this is not the perfect example, this is not perfect, but so it works. This is how it looks. Very nice. This is not exactly the same because this was done way back and it still worked. On this side, this is my proxy, which, or remember, we changed the naming, and I'm saving the names here to a temporal file. Why? Because I want my new name to be the same as my name original 1. Remember that the name original 1, if I'm not mistaken, was let me see, this is the name. Yes, my name original 1 was the same as my name, right? But then I edited my name, so it's different. Now some small pieces are from the other side, so they are from the big piece. So what I'm doing here is to saving again my actual name to my temporal name here, and I'm resetting this name back to my name orig, and I'm doing, hey, transfer my name original 1 and my name temp, and transfer these groups, and I'm promoting these guys from primitive to points, so this is readable. And then I'm saying, hey, if always, please do active 1 and I animated 1. I don't know why did I do this. I could have deleted the if clause, and the h will be equals to 0. Here is the animation, or the points of the animation, and as you can see, these are the points which I have, and this is the static, which is the first frame. What I'm doing here is only using the name temporal, because the name temporal, if I were to do a drawing, let me show you the nip here. My name was resetted, so each name is one piece, is back to normal, as you can see. But my name temporal, which was my name, which was modified, looks something like this. This is one piece, perhaps this is another piece right here. So we will use that hack to move all the orientation of the pieces. So you will see that everything is moving. This is a very, very cool trick. And what I'm doing here is just transferring the edge of these pieces here. So you will see some edges move from 0 to 7. That's how it is. I'm grabbing this line, I'm resampling this, I'm doing changing the width. You can see this is an animation from the camera, and with this cool trick from the curve view of the resample, this is a resample curve view, subdivision curves times 40. With this thing, I'm doing an offset. The offset is an animation from point A to point B. This is a growth animation. Basically, it's doing, hey, go from 1 to negative 78 roughly. And this is the multiplication I want, and this is the effect you can create with an offset inside a SideFX with a curve view. I'm basically grouping all these guys at the middle because they will start to begin activated in the simulation. Then all the small pieces will be group active 2 equals 1 and will be active 1 and animated 0. So these pieces will be just, they will just be activated upon this group being there. I don't need a solver because this will always be a constant. And if we go into the simulation, this is how it was done. A constraint network that go into the constraint we did before. Then this is a bullet soft constraint relationship. Restaurant set to 0 because they are points. And if it's set to 0.4, I don't need it much more. This is the RPD pact. I'm overwriting the attributes. This is from the first context, which are basically these guys here. And then I'm showing the guided geometry. But I could have displayed this, which is pretty much the same. I'm creating a comics tool per set of connected primitives. So these are spheres. This is an extremely fast piece of simulation. This is real time, basically. As you can see, it falls once this activation is used. As you can see here, this is what happens. It's moving and it starts to get activated. Pretty nice, right? So the only thing I did here to break the constraints was to do hey, if your name is glue, because this constraint was called glue, and if the angle is bigger than this angle and the distance is bigger than this, then remove the primitive. This is not an and, this is an or. So if one thing or the other happens, please break your constraints. The distance was due to these guys not breaking anywhere. So this is the distance getting activated. And some pieces, for example, yeah, here, this will break over, some of them will break over the angle and some over the distance. You can do a lot of iterations with this. This is static from the Heightfield we created before, which is at the top, and this is only a gravity. And as you can see, this is just my points. I'm grabbing create points to represent the objects, and I'm transferring the name of each, which remember was my edited naming convention. This is the first, and this is the time shift. So this is all I need for the primary simulation. Okay, so moving on to the secondary. This is nice. This is not so hard. Yeah, maybe. So this is my geometry. As you can see, it has these names. Okay, it's packed, so we won't be able to see the names. And what I'm doing here is to grab the animation. You remember it. And the static. And then I'm moving this. This is how it looks. So already fascinating. And we only have a couple of pieces. As you can see, this is layered. So we're doing just fine. Not so much lag. So same deal again. There is time shift, rest. The same. I'm using exactly the same deal from where it was from here. It's exactly the same. Exactly the same. I'm just saving this. And this is how it looks. Nothing else, just points. So I don't need to explain over this. Now I have more constraints to work on. Why? Where is this from? Oh, this has to go here. So let's do for destruction first. Let's grab this. This is the geometry, right? It's coming from here, which is also more or less the same as this one. We're splitting where? Based on the inside and the outside. We're going to break both of them. So let's dive in here first. So we're doing per named primitive. We're grabbing the edge. We're splitting this on the top. Oh, so we are basically removing the extrude side and the inside. And we are grabbing the edge and doing this to curve. Let's do a scatter on top of it. As you can see, I'm going to change this geometry to points so we can see a little bit better. There we go. And then I'm fusing some of them because I'm having too much of them. Then I'm point replicating this, so it's pretty much crazy. Then I'm having this. Remember, I always told you guys, start with better initial shapes. This is not good enough. It's not nearly good enough. So if I were to do this again, I would have way more detail on the initial shapes. And I'm grabbing the rest position. I usually never ever use the material fracture, but in this case it was Very, very useful. Very useful. Why? Because I was not being able to have the amount of detail I wanted. Doing Boolean fracture was not working, and this had a great edge fracture, as you can see here. Again, in my perception, I would have needed to add more detail, especially if you are near the camera, like a rock here. In this case, this detail is nice, but when you are near the camera, I really didn't think about that. I should have thought about the distance from the camera to add more or less fracture detail. So that's my bad. You should definitely do it. So these are all the pieces. It looks quite nice. I have more pieces at the top than at the bottom. I'm assembling this. I'm transferring this and promoting this to from primitive points. I think, yeah, I saved the name back again to name original because it used to be name temp, right? And then I'm grabbing the distance from the edge to the bottom of these pieces, and I'm doing the same trick of this. You can just copy and paste from before, which I'm grabbing the minimum and max of this promotion, which is the maximum 21 meters. And what I'm doing is, hey, if you are from a certain threshold, you are going to be breakable. This is how it looks. If we split what's breakable from not, this is breakable, and the other side is not breakable. This will never, ever, ever break, which is what I wanted, especially. This is going to iterate over all the pieces, and it's going to look something like this. This is how it's going to look. If we do an exploded view, these are all the pieces. It looks like teeth. And of course, you can split what's breakable from what's not breakable. Well, here, I believe I did something similar. Okay, I didn't. This is not necessary. I'm going to delete this and let's dive in here. In this case, it was different because I wanted to have these edges breaking, because otherwise I was getting not nearly enough detail as I wanted. So BDB from polygons, smooth, reshape, and convert. This is like having the middle of the piece, basically. I'm grouping the top and I'm grouping the bottom, transforming the top and transforming the bottom. And then I'm BDB converting a little bit of mountain. Again, more detail. I would definitely use more detail here. BDB, convert, and then a simple fracture. As you can see, now we do have a fracture. And I'm using the cut pieces. The cut pieces is basically a group you get here, which is extremely useful. You can split the inside from the outside. Guys, remember you have this attribute because I used to do crazy things to get this. Well, all that's on the outside, I want to break it, all of it. So this is necessary and this is unnecessary. Sorry guys. Then I'm splitting this on the top edge, basically same trick, group, promote. I'm transferring this guy here. I just pick it a little bit so I can transfer. I can delete all the edges because I was getting well, basically all the edges, even the one on the inside. I'm just removing those. So basically I'm subtracting from existing, and then I'm promoting these two edges. So, and then I'm doing edge to curve, scatter, and I'm also scattering a little bit all over the place on the inside faces, as you can see. Then I'm merging these two guys, then fusing some of them, and I'm point replicating. So same deal. And when I do the RVD material fracture, this is going to take a while. It's going to look something like this. Let's wait. And this is the final result after 4 minutes. Guys, RVD material fracture is like this. Okay, and the last time I forgot to show you the options. I used detail size of 2, noise of 10, and element size of 4, which is detail and only unchanged polygons. And with the naming, it looks something like this. You have a lot of pieces, a lot of pieces. Then I'm grouping this big, I'm subtracting this from the big, and I'm setting them to small. Then I'm merging the big actual piece. And this is the assemble, and I'm promoting the name original from perimeter to point, because I want to, this is all name original. And then this is the same distance trick where I'm setting the breakable things. So basically everything that's on the inside is going to be breakable. And let's do this with all the pieces, which I'm not going to do because I already have this saved, and it looks something like this. There we go. This is how it looks with an exploded view. It looks something like this, which are a ton of pieces, then what I'm doing is to select all these pieces, which I should have done using the breakable group, but I did this. And then I'm grabbing all these pieces and blasting with the frustrum every piece which I don't need. Then I'm using a time shift because the camera is moving, and I'm merging this back again. This is what I get. This is what I get if I merge both of these guys together. This is the out prefix fractures, which I'm moving here, and I'm doing the good old trick of the pieces of transferring the naming conventions so I can displace all the geometry with the big original pieces. Same deal here. I'm unpacking this. This is going to take a while. Then I'm splitting based on I only want the big pieces. And then what I'm doing is to measure fracture this so I can split from small to big, which is all these small pieces, which are going to be not useful for my simulation, which are a lot of pieces. I want them to just transfer the groups, pack them. There are 5,000 pieces, and I'm merging them with the other guys at the right, which are these ones. I'm unpacking, promoting the names, and then merging these guys together. This is how it looks with the name. This is how it used to look. As you can see, this at the middle is automatically changed. It will feel more natural. In some places it's here, it's here. Now we have an edge, but it's not so clear we have it. This is a nice fix also. It's like a collateral damage. Then I have the big pieces and the reorganized pieces all assembled together. And I also have, I'm setting right from frame the distance from the camera. So it also has a distance from the camera. I can determine where these pieces are in space from the first frame. And I'm transferring the name original back again so I don't lose it. And it's on the points right here. This is the original points, and these are all the little pieces I had. This is what I had at the very beginning, right somewhere over here. And I save this to disk. As you can see, I'm losing something here, but it's pretty much useless. I really didn't need this. The only difference is right here. The selection is a little bit different. Then this is the fractures, and with these fractures I'm creating the constraints. Step in. This is a little bit harder. Okay, so I'm having all these pieces, and I'm promoting the name original again back to points to primitive, so I can go per name or each. Name or each are very big. I'm having these back again to points. I'm adding points on all these but I'm deleting the geometry on all this geometry, and I'm connecting them together with the settings, and I'm saying, hey, the same trick. And basically, if they are on the same piece, it gets deleted. Since this is all different points, you just won't find anything, and just copy paste it before. And I'm unpacking everything. And I'm splitting based on the cut pieces, which are these on the inside, I believe. Yes, so this is the opposite. And I'm scattering some pieces here, some points everywhere and some points on the other side. Then I'm saying, hey, you are cluster 0 and you are cluster 1. I'm merging and I'm just connecting, or I'm connecting all the points together, and I'm saying, hey, if cluster from point A to point 0 is the same, get deleted. So all these points will get deleted. Well, I'm getting all of this and I'm cleaning. As you can see, only connections between different pieces are available. I'm saving this rest position. I'm having a facet, a primitive to make them very small. They are still here, but very small. And I'm saying, hey, all the constraints here will be named inside. Constraints will be 1. And also the constraint name will be big, and they will be all only if the group is big. So I have two groups. This is the inside and this is the big side. The big side looks like this, the inside groups looks like this, so we can divide this. This is the secondary constraints. I'm doing something else, which is the rest position 2. We have rest and we have rest 2. These are a little bit different because remember I saved this here first, then I did the primitives, and I have both things, and I'm resetting this back to where they belong to see them just a little bit. I'm using a strength here, so let me show you how it looks. This is the noise I'm having here. This is strength with these values, so I'm basically having very weak sides here. I'm promoting the strength to the minimum strength, and well, this is going to primitives, and then I'm doing a mountain. I'm clustering these guys, these constraints. If I were to look at the cluster, it looks something like this. And then if I reset these guys with the second rest position, and then I do the same trick right here, but with cluster and also with the name, I'm grabbing those two. If the cluster is different to the cluster, then it has to be an edge. It has to be the edge, because it's basically saying, hey, are you from this cluster? Yes. Are you from this cluster? Yes. Hey, we are different clusters, so we have two names different on one single primitive, then you're an edge. And if the name is different from the name 1, so if you are from another piece, basically get deleted. So this is just in case I have undesired connections of different name originals. That's about it. Then I'm splitting the edge, and I'm calculating how off they are from those original points, how inside they are. And as you can see, if I were to look into this is how it looks. This is how it looks remapped to 200 meters. You can see it's like a heat map from the edges to the inside. I'm promoting these two primitives, and then I'm multiplicating the strength by the distance. So this is how it looks right now. This is the strength. It's the same, but with a fall off now. This was before, this is right now. So the more inside you are, the more strong you are. Then I'm cleaning all the spare points, and I'm restoring them back to 0, to their original rest position. And I'm saving this to disk. These are my constraints. These are the small guys which are being split right here, and these on the right are the big pieces. So in a compile, I'm doing a for each, I believe, name or each, yeah, name or each. And if I go inside one of these, if I got only one piece, I'm saying, hey, BDB from polygons, BDB to spheres, this to the small, and attribute copy, and the same group copy. Breakable, but in this case, I'm also having breakable. Why did I do this? Because, well, the small pieces only deserve this amount of resolution, whereas the big pieces, so the big pieces are doing exactly the same. Well, these two are exactly the same, the big and the small pieces. I must have changed it at the end of the day, so these pieces will remain with the same resolution. And these bigger pieces, I believe, yeah, they are using 1 instead of 0.5. Otherwise, they will look incredible huge. So basically, I'm assembling this. I'm transferring back the name range 1, the big, small, and breakable, and I'm not setting anything else. I'm also promoting this back to points, so it sees where it belongs, and it looks something like this. There are a lot of spheres here. It's a little bit laggy to move in the viewport, really, but as you can see, these are the attributes I have, the same as before, but in the shape of spheres. Then with my sim secondary proxy, which are this, I'm using a mask. This mask will be used for the activation later on. So let's do this. Let's grab the animation, which is the animation from the first sim and the static, and I'm just transferring this based on the name of each. So not the new name, but the name of each. Let's go here and this look again. As you can see, there is a mask. I'm going to do an add and just, I believe, delete the geometry. Yes, this is how it looks. The mask looks something like this. It is a good way to see how these pieces will break. This will be very weak and this will be very strong. This, let me show you. This is the out anim simulation 1. These are exactly the same spheres. I'm going to put it here in the meantime. What I'm doing here is setting active to 0, animated to 1, and H to 0. Then I'm remapping the mask to, so it looks something like this. Not much. I'm deleting all the points, same as I'm doing here, which should be the same. And I'm transferring these points, which we got way back at the beginning, which are the activation points with the H. I'm transferring the H, and then inside this solver, what I'm doing is, hey, this is my input, which moves. This is my previous frame, transfer my active. If you don't have it, it's going to be 0, of course. Then say, hey, if the H multiplied by the mask is bigger than 3, and is also not activated, and do INMD equals to 0, and only on the breakable pieces, and transfer it back again, and so on and so forth. So this will, with the time, being active. So if I go here and do active, you will see the pieces will start to activate based on the distance from the mask and the H. Based on the mask and the H. As you can see, these get activated last, because if I were to go into the mask, you can have some different places to activate. Yeah, I would have played a little bit more if I were true to this. So this is very nice. If I were to do this again, this is my secondary proxy, which is from here, and this is secondary proxy. This is from here, and what I'm doing is transforming the pieces again, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, I'm not doing that. What I'm doing is grabbing the activation here, and the only thing I'm doing is transferring this active, because this didn't have. This is a presim activation, which is in fact moving, and I don't want this to move, so I transfer it with the transform pieces. I don't know why I decided to do this, because I have used a natural copy and it should have worked just fine, I believe. I used it like this somehow. Then okay, it's going to be a little bit laggy. So I'm transforming these pieces again with their attributes back again, but of course without the add. And if we dive into the top network, we will see that this geometry, which are we can display this, I believe here like this. It should be fast in this context. Okay, mistake. Maybe with this one is fast. This is something from my previous visualization, which is not nice to have. These are the points, which is quite laggy to move in the viewport. So the good trick was to actually import this, same again with the name reach, only the RVD, and lock this one here. When you dive in, you should be able to be here and work on this. So what we are going to do is to grab the RVD packed, create convex hull, show. This is going to be overridden. This is the bullet data. There's nothing different here. This is a tiny pop drag because the pieces are big and I want it to have a little pop drag. I want to limit the maximum speed and the maximum spin. Then I also have in this static object, which is the ground as before. This is a soft bullet. I'm not going to visualize this, so I can go there. So what I did with these constraints, which the violet are not displaying by some error, is to just, the only thing is to hide the inside and hide the outside, which I didn't change anything. Is if the angle is bigger than 0.25 and the distance, or the distance is bigger than 0.1, remove the primitive. So remove the constraints. I'm not being able to simulate this in real time, but I already have a cache which looks something like this. It moves and it starts breaking apart as displayed here. If we are moving from the camera, let's do, is the name perhaps the cluster, is have something else, this distance. So I only have the name. So from camera it looks something like this, the points growing and falling downwards. Then I have now static anim. This is the simulation and this is static. Then what we want to do is to have then what I'm doing is to grab the animation points, of course, which are these ones, and my static, which is this one, and I'm grabbing also the pre-transforms cache. What I'm doing here, this is very, very nice. It's a nice trick for the rendering in order to do displacements once this loads, of course. To separate, this is going to be used later on. It is to split this on only the surface geometry, which is this top part, and the other. If we move it based on the name, it's going to, move based on the name, of course. The same deal goes for the inside parts. This is the out at the end of the day. This is only for the stage. I'm just renaming this so it only has one singular name, and I'm deleting this name. And the same thing goes for the other one, which is just having another name. I don't really need more than this for my rendering. Otherwise, it would take a long time to inject into Solaris, which I'm really not interested in. This is the inside. So moving forwards, this is the destruction out. So the ceiling, I'm promoting these guys and keeping the original 2 points, and I'm adding a debris source. This debris source will work as follows: only on the inside and the extrude side. On the rest frame 1001, this is the density, and I do want to have an ID per group. So let's reset this. Nothing is going on here, but what I'm doing here is, hey, if you are on the side, go to the left. Hey, if your color is less than 0.25, hey, you are on the side. Hey, if your CD is not equals to 25, this is 25 and this is 25, please go to the left. Otherwise, I don't really need you. Merge these two guys together and you are active and your side on the other side. I can't really show you in real time, but I'm going to show you with these guys here. So I want to show you, this was before I did this. This was before. I just wanted to show you what I have what I had in this case. I had the resource and I was splitting everything that was active. You can see when this got active from the initial simulation, it transfers this back into the debris, and this is part of only one step which I'm using here. I kept this old test before doing this, because in this case, as you can see, we initialized without points, and in this case I saved it with points. I then saved this, this is what we should be doing, and as you can see, it will be the same but way faster. So what I'm doing here is saving the rest position, extracting the rest, which I said beforehand, and I'm using a time shift to the frame I like this nice place right here. This is a really nice place to do sourcing. And then I do want to have some thin lines, and this is a nice frame where I got thin lines activated. This is something else, and this is out to wedge. I don't think I used this really. Yeah, I didn't use this. This part is useless whatsoever. So moving on to the RVD out preparation, which is this one right here, we will see that we are going to have our height field real. We are going to extrude a little bit. This is my whole height field, and we're going to turn it into an SDF. These are my fractures, and this is my secondary proxy, which I do not really want to see because these are my fields. I'm going to lag everything. And we are using a wrangle. We are finding from the first point and the second if there are any points that match the naming. If it's equal to 0, so there are no matching, you will be deleted right here. Then I'm unpacking everything. As this is unpacked, I'm going to go per piece of name or each. Yes, name or each one. I'm going to go per piece, for example this one, and what I'm going to do is to, hey, this chunk will be equal to the detail. ¿Qué carajo le estoy usando? Così necessario. I'm unpacking and going per piece and saying, hey, you have to get this chunk on each iteration. If you are iteration 1, you're chunk number 1. Then all I'm doing here is to, again, send my name original from premise to point, and I'm saying these pre-transformations. And these transformations are very interesting because they were connected before with a wedging, which I'm going to show you right here. So as you can see, if we go and press chunk, we will have 31 chunks, and you will see why I do this before. First, we go to out destruction pre-transform. This is the node, and you will see this is connected here. Why? Because you cannot simulate this. It's impossible to simulate this in a normal computer, and I have to polyreduce. But you know what also is impossible? It's impossible to polyreduce so much information in a singular PC. You are going to run out of RAM. That's so sure you're going to run out of RAM. Even I ran out of RAM with this 128 gigabytes. So what you get to do is to, since you have this chunk, you want to create a wedge. So create a labs file cache. The settings, in my case, I'm dividing my CPU by 8. So I got, I'm going to do a couple of batches of 8 cores from my 64 cores. So 64 divided by 8 is going to give a couple of sessions. And what I'm doing here is to, hey, I'm saying what's the detail and what's the number of iterations from this node. And this will return me 32, which is the amount of wedges I want here. Perhaps it's -1 because, no, it's 32, yeah. And then if I, for example, grab, let me load this piece, for instance, you will see that this particular piece is polyreduced, which is amazing. And look at this. In this case, with the blast, I'm blasting everything that's not on this chunk. As you can see, the wedge is the wedge 0, 1. This is the value wedge, and this is wedge here. Chunk is equals to wedge. So chunk is equals to 1, wedge is equals to 1. This is 1, 0, 1. And I'm polyreducing everything that's not, that's extrude front, side, and inside. So everything that's not the outside, because I don't want to have, I want to have a proper sealing. This will become in handy later on. And I did this like this to go chunk per chunk. If I show you all the wedges at the same time, it's something like this. All these poly reduced a lot, and this perfectly fine at the top. See, you wouldn't notice nothing strange anywhere. Continue. I'm going to assemble this. I don't know why I assembled this, because I didn't unpack it. And I'm going to subdivide. This is going to take a while, but I'm just going to show you that I subdivided every single piece. I added a rest value to these subdivisions. I then, oh, this is very interesting. Okay, so you get to see this. So let's just show you deleting a couple of pieces. So let's select these ones and blast them out like so. Delete the opposite. So what I did here is to subdivide a couple of pieces because I want to have more resolution here, as you can see, before and after. Then I have a rest position. This is, well, it's useful to have it, especially for the shading. And then I have this SDF. Why I have this SDF? Because I want to volume sample the surface divided by the depth. This is how it's going to look. If I have the mask, it's going to look something like this. This is the division, basically. This is the value I liked the most. And this is remapped. Let's see. Okay. So this, if we were to add more to our mask, would look something like this, I believe. Oops, one. So I'm basically having a little bit of side on the top of the ceiling. If we go to mask, this mask is going from 1.8 to negative 145 meters. So this should go like something like this. You can see. So this is the exterior and this is the inside. What I want to do is to just normalize this, as always, from 0 to 1. This division is useful for this. So I can displace the edge. This is what I wanted. And I'm blurring everything a little bit, which is not 0. And then I'm basically saving this all over the place. Because I used to have, I didn't delete some pieces to do this. I have everything. This is quite expensive to load. Okay, and I forgot that this should have gone here. My bad. So this is the transform cache, which is done doing something, well, what I showed you before, which is then driving this. So let's go into the wedging. The wedging basically begins with creating some various things. To begin with, let's just do the rocks, because we're going to do wedging over some rocks. So this is our tiny rock. Let's look, this is a cube with a subdivision and a mountain. I'm setting the names to rock 1 and I'm packing this. So we have 2 rocks. That's it, those are our rocks. And the variant is equal to the PTNAM, because remember, these are points. Now, per piece, I'm going to do a box and I'm going to send the variant and the name, and I'm packing this. So we have the low and the high. Let's move on. This is the grid. And remember, this is our Heightfields scatter. These are all our points we had before. Remember, from the camera, it looks something like this. And this is the final presim. The final presim, remember, now we are visualizing the mask. This is with all these subdivisions. We are promoting the name and we are transferring the name to these scatters, which are on the surface. So now, if we use the name, we will see that the rocks have each individual name based on where they are standing. We are matching these to our points, and we are doing also facet, This facet is to make each box unique. We're doing a connectivity and we're doing per connected piece. We're extruding upwards. We are doing a bounce to make it a little bit larger. And then we are mixing both of them. So we have a box inside and a box outside. One contains the middle, one contains a little bit more. And now we are blasting per wedge. What is this wedge? It has to be surely... Oh, where it is the wedge? If we have file cache somewhere around here. For example, this wedge is looking into this object, and we have this wedge. As before, if we click here and we press on the button, it will process, of course. And now on the wedge, we will only be using these two boxes. Only using this wedge of this, we're going to split the small box and the big box. These are our points, as you can see here, and we're going to blast everything that's grouped inside the small box. And then we're going to blast everything that's inside the big box, but it's going to be the pre-transform low. Remember guys, this is the low, what we saved before. So we are grouping everything that's not these big boxes. This is a not, because we do not want to delete this later on. We're grouping this and we are blasting everything that's here, right? So we have this interesting solution, and we're also cleaning the points. This is what we end up having. We end up having these points on top and this geometry, which is going to be the collider. As you can see, we're going to get the points to wedge, our first simulation points, our first static, and with this, if we move per name, it's going to look something like this. The points start to move. Remember, these are supposed to be rocks. Nice. Now, what we want to do is to do a random per number with a threshold, and if it's inside the threshold, the variance is going to be 0, otherwise the variance is going to be 1. So if we use the variant, let's visualize the variant, we'll have some points being one or another. We'll have more of one variant. We're going to remap with the mask, because we used to have a mask. This is the mask we used to have, which comes way up from the scatter on the line. I believe it's somewhere around where it was. This is scatter on the line. Heightfields scatter. There. This is the scatter values, as you can see. And this is the mask by feature. Then we are attribute noising the p-scale. Remember, this has a p-scale already. The mask is going to turn into the p-scale. We're basically just remapping this mask, and we are adding a noise, a multiplication noise with this. So if we watch the p-scale, let's look for the p-scale, is something similar, but a little bit different with this noise. We are splitting the variant which is equals to 0 and the variant which is equals to 1. And we are doing a distance. If we watch the distance, which is this one, we will see, if we remap this to 0 to 1, to 0.8 to 0.3, that the small pieces, which are the big ones, are creating like some kind of a distance threshold, which is going to then multiply our p-scale. If we look at our p-scale, it's going to look something like this now. Look how more advanced it looks. Like big pieces are surrounded by small pieces. This is what I was aiming for. And then these big pieces are going to have an additional noise to be a little bit more interesting. We're going to merge these two guys together. This is for the rocks. So let's go a step further. These are the rocks low. These are the scatters. Remember, this rock lower a little bit on top of the surface. This is the scatter. We're going to do an active value set. This is float, this is set to active. If we have a look, we have this. Okay, let's watch this again. Active, visualize this. This is a random value. If we do active from 0 to 1. So if active is bigger than this, then the group is going to be active. If not, it's of course not going to be same to active. The name original of these points is going to be equals to the name, and the name is going to be rock plus your point number. So the name is basically this. So all the points have a new interesting new number, but I'm also remembering where it is from, right? So we can move them, and we can also declare which name has which. And we're going to copy the points, a lot of boxes. Now look how this looks. This is pretty much amazing, and it's moving based on the simulation, as you can see. So if we were to align the simulation which is doing, for example here, you will see it is moving. We're going to do a time shift here in the first frame, because this is what I only need. And we're going to create an attribute, which is the P scale, right? Which we didn't delete. We removed this thingy here. We saved it, and we're going to save it to P scale 2, because we need to store it into a temporal. We're going to remove the active, and we are going to say, hey, active is equal to 0, and active, and inactive is equal to 1. We are going to do a randomize and delete a couple of them, because I don't need so many points. So you can see this is how it could look. This is what I wanted, and I deleted all of these things. I just want these variables: active, animated, name orig, p scale 2, velocity, and variant. The velocity is coming from the pieces. I want also these groups. This is the first animation, which name orig is now equals to name, because I don't need all the chunk to be moving. I want all of them to be individual. As you can see, if I go into the name, this is how it is now. This is how it was. Oh, it didn't change anything apparently. Oh no, I'm just saving the name original. Okay, yeah, I know. I'm transforming this to name original, because otherwise name original, let's do a color random from attributes. Otherwise it would look something like this: no name original. Now I have a name original. In this case, this is static, and the same thing, I have a name original, which is exactly the same to my name. And in this case, this also has a name original, which was the name. And I can move these guys really fast with transform pieces, instead of using a copy to points each frame. This is way faster, as you can see. And it also has a velocity. What I'm doing here is the same trick: active, animated. And in this case, the way I'm activating is, hey, if the length of the velocity is bigger than 1.5 meters per second, then, and also it's not active, then you're going to be active and you're going to be animated to 0. The usual feedback. And now these pieces can be activated over time. When they go fast, they will be activated. That's about it. Then this is to collide. The to collide, remember, was this part. Then I'm going to assemble this. We are going to active 0, animated 1. Then I'm going to promote these two primitives here. This is the name. We're going to make this a little bit smaller, because I don't want them to explode once we animate the pieces. I'm going to transform this based on the animation I had. As you can see, it works perfectly on this chunk. I'm going to time warp this with the settings, because I want to have interpolation capabilities. Then these are the rock lows, and we're going to dive into the dot network. The dot network is basically all the rocks. These are the rocks, and this is the mountain. The mountain is this mountain collider, which is this one, and the rocks are, well, the rocks, which are this one, these two guys I'm grabbing. Then I'm using a pop drag of 0, 1 and nothing else. Everything is dynamic. I'm basically, okay, this is very important. I'm grabbing the quaternion. Let me show you. This is what it looks. This is what it looks without. I'm restoring the quaternion of the orient, and I'm also grabbing the pivot, which is stored in the prim intrinsics. The prim intrinsics are these guys here. Let me show you. Right here, please, let me show you. This is the transform. If I go into the transform, these are the transforms, which in this case is also, it should also be, where is this? Well, it's stored here, right? But I believe it's also stored here. Yes, this is a intrinsic transform. As you can see, each of them have a different value, which in this case I want to store because the copy to point will be confused otherwise. And the pivot is also mandatory to see if they are, it is a little bit misaligned. And I'm having this stored. This is very key. I basically want to have, where are all the points? Oh, this is not. Basically what I want to do is to have this, exactly this. See, this is my orientation, and I want to have the same result here. See, when you see this is the same, it means that you are doing the things properly. You are doing the things you need to do properly. You shouldn't be doing anything else. You need to copy, and you need to do this outside. You don't need to assemble here because this should already be assembled. And then the same thing, you should only assemble when there is no clock. If there is a clock and you are assembling, this won't work. Then we are deleting all these things, the orient, the physical 2, the pivot. Oh no, I'm keeping all this, which is the one I want. And I'm saying, hey, physical 2 will be now pscale, and I'm deleting all the groups, and I'm saving this. In this case, these points ended up looking something like this after the simulation. You will see once they get activated, they will start falling, which is actually insane. Look how fast this is loading. And these are actually rocks. And since now I have well, I can delete a couple of them to see better or to see faster, which I'm not going to do. And the way to see if this is working properly is, in which we're going to grab in Solaris, is that if you go into here and you copy the rocks here, and you have the p-scale, you have the orient, and you have the pivot perfect, you should be able to see this also exactly the same. Okay, we should go into this wedge. My bad. Oh no, here, sorry, here. So we should be able to select the same wedge. This is here, this is here. So I guess, oh no, this should work. Yes, see, this is my copied points and this is my simulation. They are exactly the same. This is when you know that you succeeded perfectly. So let's continue to what brings life to this art piece, the smoke. So we will be bringing a couple of things from before. Let's follow these lines. To begin with, we are going to bring a couple of wedges from all the wedges we created. We're also going to bring the small box and the big box, because this is what is going to create, well, basically our sources, our colliders, etc. Then we will be bringing the pre-transform sketch, which is what we use. We will be using to source for the debris, for well, the sourcing in general. Then we will be using the debris source, which we created before. This, remember, is from an old version. You will be using these ones right here. They will be exactly the same. I just prefer this version. And finally, my secondary fractures. My secondary fractures is because I will be transforming my pieces back again with this simulation in particular. Okay, so let's go into the first section. So let's begin by importing our secondary fractures. You will see right here, these are my fractures. This is my static animation. This is my big box, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So I'm grabbing all these pieces. I'm blasting everything that is not these pieces. And with this incredible piece of code, while comparing the name and the name of these two guys, and if there is nothing, it will be deleted. So everything that's outside this box will be deleted. I'm going to also do a frustrum just in case I'm doing anything else. As you can see, some pieces were deleted with a blast right here. Since we have not that much geometry, this is just blasted extremely fast. Then we're going to time shift this just in case. We're going to clean and polyfill this on every single piece. And we will be able to transform piece everything here. As you can see, if we move forwards, this is what happens. This is our collider. Easy peasy. Secondly, this is my unpacked area, right? This one right here. We're going to unpack it. Well, it's already unpacked, but this doesn't matter. We're going to poly reduce this geometry. As you can see, this is how it looks. It looks okay. If I were to do this again, I would just poly reduce the bottom, not the top. And I'm going to transform these pieces again. It's the same, but in lower res. This is for my SDF. My for SDF is for this. This is what I'm using for the collider. I'm going to transform this into an SDF with point B and B being the displacement velocity and acceleration with this voxel size. This is going to be my SDF. I'm going to group it. The same for the polys. I'm going to just, well, basically delete every attribute, which is not only this I want. I'm going to delete every single group and I'm going to do poly. And I'm going to cache this into all the different wedges, which are driven by this metadata, which we created before everything else. We also use it here. We're going to use it right here too. So if we reset this and we can go wedge by wedge, and if of course we can load all of them at the same time, we can do load a specific wedge, which this is dependent on where I click. As you can see, I did this code, so when we are in simulation, we will be reading this. And then we can also do all wedges, so we can see what's going on. This should be fairly fast because this is extremely optimized. As you can see, it didn't take that long to load. Let's stay with specific wedges. Nice. So this is my preparation for my smoke simulation. Moving forwards, we have three sources, three types of sources. Let's begin with the easiest. The easiest is the collider from the ground, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look. So with this geometry, which is just coming from what we did here, we split it between the poly and the SDF. So this is the collider and this is the collider SDF. We will creating a really nice, depending on the velocity, of course, pull force. Now, what's nice about this pull force is that it's scale dependent. My main idea to this is to create a force not only initialized, but also to pull, generally speaking, with a good trick inside DOPS. So in just a moment, I will show you. This will be called VADB. That's how I want it to call. V from a velocity and advection, or ADB from advection. That's what I wanted to call it. This is my pull force. I will convert this to VDB and cool volumes based on the density. But this is not necessary because it's not going to change anything because there's no density. I'm just copy and pasting from the other sources. So this is our easiest source. What we're going to be doing right now is to create a couple of things. Two sources. Firstly, grabbing the pre-transforms cache, we will be splitting this based on the breakable. Hence, the pieces that actually break, we will group everything that has to do with a small box, so everything that's inside our simulation, which is this one. I also transformed this a little bit lower because some places were clipping like these ones. And then I'm going to split everything that's not inside the box. Everything outside the box will be deleted. So we have only these pieces, which is precisely what I want, because this is inside the box. This will produce smoke. We will promote the name to points so we can scatter and keep the names of the pieces. We will scatter 3 times. 1 scatter, 2 scatters, 3 scatters with 1 million points into the inside and extrude side. This is how it looks at the end. We will frustrum this based on the camera. In this case, almost everything is in the camera because I have a little bit of padding. And then, well, I can show you how it looks. I have a little bit of padding, as you can see. And then I'm going to time shift just in case. And then with the animation of these points, we will be animating all of our points based on the name, which is stored into the points. With this, what I'm going to do is to say, hey, the active area is equal to 0. I'm going to send this activate area, which is this thing. What I'm doing here is basically activating the points. So this is the resource which we created before. If you remember, it was created right in this spot. And we're also going to do the same. Blast everything that's not from the area because we don't need that. We're going to split everything that's not active. So as you can see, as we go forwards or backwards in time, some pieces will or should be, yeah, as we can see, not all the pieces are here. And we will be saying, hey, your active area equals to 1. And we will be transferring this active area. So let me show you. Active area looks something like this. As soon as it's starting to break, it will start catching up with our simulation. Boom. There we go. There we go. This is what I want. This is what's going to be active because I don't want this to ever do anything if they're not active. Some pieces will fall, but they will fall outside of our camera. With this, I'm going to remove everything whose velocity is less than 0.1 and everything whose active area is less than 0.1. So I'm only going to keep these active pieces, and this is only for a matter of optimization. I'm also going to frustrum this because some pieces fall off the world. I'm going to add some temperature noise. Let's see how it looks. Where's the temperature? Temperature. There we go. This is the temperature. It's just a simple temperature with animated noise on 1, element size of 8.8. This is set, nothing else. The same with the density. It looks fairly similar, just a little offset. And with that natural wrangle, this is what I'm doing. This is very interesting. I'm going to, hey, the mask, if the mask is less than 0.3, let me show you how the mask looks. So this was the mask. The mask, remember guys, it was created when we decided to do the depth of the geometry. It was created with our SDF. Where was it? It was created with this section here. So what I'm going to do is, hey, multiply the points, because I have some points in your surface based on the density. Well, here, based on where you are in the surface. If you are near the surface, you won't emit anything. Then, because you're also going to be deleted. Then the mask is going to be a fit from the velocity, which is going to go from 0 to 2. And it's going to also be multiplied by the mask. So you're going to be exactly 0 if you're going slow and you are less than a certain amount in the mask. Then if the mask is less than y, so the height is less than a value, you're also going to be deleted. I'm going to shrink it. Remember, the top is 0, the bottom or the middle is going to be more than 1, surely, because it's a big volume. This is all the filtering, and then the density is going to be multiplied by the mask and also by the previous density. This is going to be some sort of a power function with the mask. Then the temperature is going to be multiplied by the mask and the density too. And the P scale is going to be the density going from 0 to 1 and to 0 to 1. So the less density, the less scale you have. I'm going to also add some noise here As you can see, this noise is going to add a little bit of variation. And we're going to rasterize this with this voxel scale. Density, velocity, temperature. I only want to visualize the density. This is cover scale. This is the shutter of the velocity blur. Nothing else. Pyro post process. So you can see, well, in this case, I think nothing happened. Let me check. Yeah, I use this just in case, basically, because there is always room for optimization. And this is our middle source, which is quite nice. And it's less simple. And this is the most complex one because this one is the first whoosh that comes out of the ground. So let's begin. Grabbing the thin lines. Remember, this is what I liked. In this case, I used this one. I could have used something over here, but I used this one. This is a nice spot where there are thin lines. I'm also using a fuse. And I'm connecting the actions and pieces. This is to create a really nice line. Then I'm resampling this to have this amount of points. And I'm grouping. Of course, what? I'm grouping this. Everything that's inside this tiny box. I'm also using this to source. The sourcing, remember guys, is coming from here, which is my resource. This is an old resource I generated. I could have used one of these, which is not on a thin line. It would be something similar to this. It could have used this one right here, see? But I decided to use this one, which is a little bit more powerful in my opinion. So I created this, and then I blast everything that's not there, everything that's not there. But in this case, I'm going to copy a lot of points downwards, a lot of these lines downward. I'm going to jitter this a lot. I'm going to transform it a little bit lower. Basically, it's lower than the geometry itself. Let me look for this. See, it's a little bit lower. And with a BDB from particles, I'm going to create this geometry. And with the other one, which is this one, which is the sourcing, I'm going to do my other BDB and I'm going to combine. This is the intersection. So when there is this and there is this, we will create the intersection of these two guys. We now should delete. This is my actual points. I'm deleting the H and I'm setting, I'm basically grouping everything. When there is one of these two guys missing, which is going to be this one because it's animated, nothing is going on. And then I'm setting active equals to 0. In the solver, what I'm doing is to transferring the active and the H, and if the group active is 1, active is 1. If the active is equals to 1, then it's also adding 1 of H. Remember, we send this to 0, but the active is always changing. And we are going to delete all the active which is not 1. As we go forwards, this will start appearing. This will just take a moment. See, they appear basically, because we store this active group. And with this, I'm going to feed the H from 0 to 24, which is 24 frames, to 0 to 1. And if they see H is less than 0.2, I'm going to remove the points. See? It's going to appear and then it's going to be deleted. So I'm only going to leave these points for a couple of frames. And this is going to be stopped after this. Nothing is going to happen after this value because I didn't need more, in just in case I don't want strange things appearing. So this is how the source is going to look once I do a BD from particles. This is the mission, and I'm going to do a couple of things. Firstly, I'm going to add a little bit of noise, a multiplicative. This is my values. I'm basically destroying a little bit. And this is also going to be with another noise on top of it, being my temperature. This is called temperature, this is called density. And this is very, very interesting. I'm going to, based on this bounding box, create my velocity 2, which is another velocity I want, called, obviously B2, box the size of 2, vector flow displacement because it's a velocity, and I'm going to create a noise. The constant velocity of 1 because I want this to go upwards, but also with a curl. And this is going to be multiplied, as you can see, by our temperature. I'm going to use a ceiling. So basically everywhere there is something is going to be 1. It's like clamping basically. And I'm going to grab my velocity and I'm going to multiply this. So everywhere there is nothing, it will be nothing. This is not necessary. I could just drive this into here and it would be the same, but I wanted to overcomplicate my life. They have this, then I have the Pyro process, just in case. In this case, this got cooled, so I don't have any velocity, which is outside my density. And I'm merging these 2 guys, all these 3 guys, in fact. So I have all my source, my smoke, my secondary smoke, and my pull force. And with this, we can hop in, we can go here. Which one I'm choosing, I don't remember, but we can go into another one. So in this case, it's basically the same, but in another place. And those are my sources. So finally, we need to just move to our simulation. We're almost there. So in this case, this is very interesting. What I did is to determine my division size. So in order to determine this, I'm going to grab all my Heightfield small box. I'm going to say, hey, where are you in space? This box, it should be loading. So this is my small box. I'm going to extract the centroid with the detail. And I'm also going to extract my camera points, which is all the way here. They are here and here, both guys. So let me just go into the geometry and increase the point size. So these are my 2 points. And I'm going to measure the distance of this point with the distance. And then I'm going to say, hey, if you're near 300 and 1001, you're going to go from 0.2 to 0.5. So the further the box, the less resolution you have. In this case, the resolution of this box, which is grabbing my sources, it will be about, well, it's one of the farthest, is 0.44. Remember, guys, I'm not deciding over this. Is only my division size, which is of course driven with this point function. I'm basically grabbing this and taking it over here. This is my collider, which remember is being grabbed by my specific wedge right here. This has to be turned on, and this is also turned on. And well, in this case, I'm grabbing this collision and this source. So if we go a little bit deeper, this is my source and this is my video shape. What I did is to erode this a little bit because I want some of the, once it breaks, to go between these pieces. This is my solution. This is what I did. So inside this solver, I did a couple of things, 2 substeps at least. Bounce, no bounce. I'm going to extrapolate these velocity fields and expand the velocity to ensure I have a really nice disturbances and turbulences on the edges of my wind. I'm going to just leave this as it is. This is because I was playing with minimal solver. The sourcing, this is very interesting. We shouldn't limit the source, but again, I was messing around with minimal solver. The easiest density is 1, temperature is set to 1. This is as usual. And this is my pull force. My pull force is going to be my V at the B, which we created before. It's going to target my velocity. The source scale is going to be 0.5 because it's going to be okay. It's going to accelerate somewhat fast, but it's not going to decelerate. So when there's nothing going on, it's not going to stop my wind. It's not going to stop in 0. It's just not going to do anything. It's either adding or doing nothing. In my velocity 2 is from another source. It was from here. It's just going to add because it's a basic velocity, nothing else. It appears and disappears. The 2.8 and my, because I want this to go up really fast, and my velocity, which is from my main source right here, is just going to be 0.50. With this, we can dive in and look at this simulation. Let's see how it looks. As you can see, I'm loading all the wedges. I do not want that. So let's see when it appears. Okay, and this wedge appears right here, and it's looking very interesting. Oh, I also did something. This is what I'm noticing, which is in fact a mistake. I should have Frustrum my source right here. I should have Frustrum this because this is appearing, but I'm also doing a little hack inside, which is going to improve your overall simulation. So before doing anything, let's show you what I did. We can ignore these, we're not using them. We can also ignore these two guys. And we have this set to or links to these guys. So what I'm doing, I'm just adding a little, some variables. You can access this here and you can just drag and accept and it will appear. And these are plots. This is a multiplication for the high max. This is the high, this is the mid, and this is low. These are only multiplicators, and this is the size of the three. So I'm basically setting all of them to rotational force, all of them to set to control speed. These are my speed controllers. In my simulation, they were really nice like so. And my settings are going to be 25 multiplied by 1. Then it's going to be 25 multiplied by 1.3 and 25 multiplied by, well, in this case, 1. My size is going to be 0.4 multiplied by this, 0.4 multiplied by the other one, and 0.8. So you have 2 of 0.4. No, 0.05, 0.4, and 0.8. So really small, medium, and large. All of them are going to be block size, and the latest 2 are going to change this, as you can see. This is going to ensure that there is a nice mixture of big noises, medium, and small noises. The vortex confinement is just confinement set to 5, nothing else. And this is what might be useful. Everything that's not going to be inside from the camera. This is the camera frustrum. Just imagine it as this. And I'm going to split this on the X and the Y, because the camera is a square. You have the X and you have the Y. So the X, if you are bigger than yes, if you are bigger, okay, if you are bigger than -2, so if you are here and you are somewhere here but upwards, you're okay, great, you will exist. In this case, if you are less than the top, so you here, you will exist also. So if you are upwards, you go there. If then you are also up or bigger than this, you will delete it. So you will only keep this. The same with the other two thresholds, which are the Y. If you are in this case in the Y bigger than this negative value, you will get deleted. And if this happened with the X on the positive and the X on the negative, you can see positive. This is if you're bigger than -2, less than 1.02, and the 0.02 is only to create like a padding. You will be deleted. That's why on this simulation, which is not the best one to see, you will see, okay, this is not loading, or should be loading, but it is. Okay, you will see that this is trying to emit, but it can't, because it automatically gets deleted. It only gets activated everything that's inside this frustrum of the camera. That's why I said this should have not been even be thought of. So I should have added a frustrum somewhere over here in one of my sources. Let's look at another one. So this is more interesting. This is, well, this is one of my closest one. Let's look at another one. This is a very interesting one. I believe this is, yes, this is one of the closest one. No, this is not one of the closest one, but it actually looks incredible. Okay, nice. And we can also merge all of them, but let's go to the lesser one. So if you go here, let's go to the beginning. It's just loading everything. And we will see that on fields, I only have a cooling rate of 0.02. And I'm grabbing the speed. On shape, I do have buoyancy. My buoyancy is negative, so it's actually doing the opposite, it's going upwards. That's why I use temperature, so it goes upwards a little bit. On advanced, I always use these two guys because they are the best. And on output, I only output the density, the velocity, and I'm converting everything because we are using CPU and we can. So if we go to the camera, let's go to this frame, and I'm going to let everything load. As you can see, this is being frustrum by the camera, otherwise it would be a mess. And let's do all wedges and wait. These are all my wedges on top of each other. Let's change this to no lights. As you can imagine, this will be impossible to render on a single wedge. You wouldn't be able to do it with any machine, or at least not any commercial machine. I do have 128 gigabytes, and some of these simulations already was about 128 gigabytes, including the collisions, including all the geometry that was involved here. So this is pretty nice. I'm going to stop grabbing everything, just going to stay in one, so my machine doesn't explode. And basically this is my smoke part of this setup. This is very complex and it works just fine. Last but not less important is here. These will be all the components that fall, and it will be composed of a couple of things. Obviously our wedgings. We will be also grabbing my mountain collider, which is basically everything that has to do with this, which is to collide. I don't need to look at this right now, which is basically this part. It will also have a lot to do with for distraction, which is of course my secondary fractures, and will have a lot to do with my Heightfields and my mountain, which should collide also. We will be grabbing, let me see if we're grabbing something else, which I think we are not. Let me just check. Yes, we're not grabbing anything else, and yeah, we are not grabbing anything else. This is all we need. So let's begin with this, grabbing our mountain collider. This is how it looks. Remember guys, we use this back here. This is to collide, which is fairly similar to actually one of these, but I decided to use this one. I'm going to time shift this to the first frame, and I'm going to unpack this so I can only have the points. We also have the mask, which is nice. And we're going to extrude everything which is not the side and the front, so only these pieces which are touching between each other, the first ones we created. Really remember, we're also grabbing the height fill and extruding and transforming this a little bit to create the ground. You can see, oh no, this is only to group, because some pieces are going to be spawning on top of our ground, and I do not want this. I'm going to group everything which is beneath. I'm going to promote the primitive to the point, and I'm going to blast this. So I will only going to have the border, only the border. Oh, sorry, this was not so I didn't want them to spawn. It was the contrary. I want them to spawn on the edges of the main cracks. I'm going to add this. So I can delete all but the points. I'm going to do a mask. This is how the mask is looking. This is going to be for activation purposes, and I'm going to save this rest position. And on the transform pieces, okay, this rest should be here, but anyways, on the transform pieces, I'm going to transform these pieces which are only the edge, right? This is going to spawn grains. We are going to add the following. A variable so it emits. So if the velocity of the y position is less than the rest, which it was this one, but it's rest plus a minimum, so it's less than y plus a value. So if less than that, it will be able to go into the second condition, which is if the p on y is less than the maximum. So there's going to be a threshold. So if you are moving from here, you will be able to emit, right? But only if the velocity is bigger than 1. So let's see how this looks. Nothing, they start moving, they will create, emit, and stop because they went upwards, emit because they are falling on where I want them to emit, and that's about it. And this is also dependent on the mask. So the mask is changing, so I'm not emitting everywhere, only in some places. And a replication, a little bit replication here, so it's a little bit more fun to see. This is one of the sources. This is out trail shitter source. This grab our Mondo collider, time shift. This is BDB from polygons. This is a primitive. I'm shrinking them a little bit. You can see all of them. And I'm also turning this into BDBs. And I'm combining this. This will create an interesting thing. This is the difference. It's going to create the cracks between all the rocks. And I'm going to combine it with something. This is very interesting, guys. Look, this is for the destruction. I'm going to blast everything that's not only the top part. And what I'm going to be doing is to go per piece, a little bit. I'm going to group the edge, grab this curve, fuse it again, just in case, and do this for all of my pieces. I have the edge of everything. I'm going to resample this so I don't have so many points. And I'm going to wedge all with our inside. I could have grabbed the inside, don't worry, guys. And I'm going to group all that I need. I'm going to blast this. I'm going to resample this. I'm going to polywire this. This is very useful because I only want to be optimal. I only want to have a, what's the name? I only want to have points where I need the points. I don't want points everywhere. I would otherwise have points all around here. I only want inside of my breaking points, which are, as I know, on the edge of my big pieces. This is going to be turned into a grain source. This is going to be a little bit expensive because it is already in high resolution. This is how they look. These are all my inside grains. This is how it's looking, 0.19. And this is my grid. And somehow I discovered that you can actually group, even though it is not filled. Don't ask me why, it just works. So I'm grouping everything that's beneath this, as you can see. So everything that's on top of my ground is going to be blasted. I'm also going to, from camera, Frustrum. Look how many points I'm deleting, a lot. I went from 6.1 to, I guess, 5. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I went to 5.38. I have time shifting it because the camera is moving. And I'm transferring in here this time shift and unpacking this. My names, because I want these to have names. They all deserve to have names. Nice. And these are going to be my Vellum constraints. This is the settings which are being copied from the grains. These are just, well, spheres right now. I'm going to add a little mask so you can have a variation. You would imagine how this looks. And then this is the ID. Each one of these has an ID. So these are my two sources. What I did here is that my shitter has a constraint and it also shitters a little bit more each frame. So this is how it's going to look. Very nice. And it's going to, I create my own ID and I feel kind of dumb because you can actually create an ID with the next ID attribute, if I'm not mistaken, in Vellum. But hey, I decided to create my own. So my ID is going to be, I'm going to grab the ID of myself. No, that my ID of the maximum of this one. This is the maximum. I'm going to grab the maximum plus my frame minus 1001 because I want the frame to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to add the PT number. This will create an original ID which is extremely different from this one. They will never match, so I can admit this was a strange solution, guys. I wouldn't recommend this. It's nonsense. You just with an XID you should be fine. Well, and this is the collider and this is a solver. In this solver what I'm doing is a little bit more complex, but basically I'm grabbing my points, I'm grabbing my collider. As you can see, these are the grains and this is the collider. I'm grabbing both and I'm transforming. What I'm doing here is transforming my pieces as they move. They will also fall. They will continue the animation. I'm transferring the velocity back again. I'm also transferring the active. Again, we do not have an active. The active is only going to be determined if the velocity on the Y position multiplied by the mask which I created from 0 to 1 to 2.5 to 1.5. Basically, this is going to create some kind of a drag, so they don't just fall down at the same time. Minus T, which is minus is, I mean, it's less than negative 3.5, and it's also not active, it's going to be active. So with this solver, we will be able to see, let me show you right here. Okay, I think I can show you only with the active. If I go to active, there we go. These are all active, I guess. No, let's go to the beginning. Let's press play. You will see that eventually they will start turning from another color. This is a little bit slow because I do have like 5 million points, but it's a nice way to activate your grain points in the solver. You'll see they're starting to move, and it will change color once it's fast enough. Let's look this from the camera. Let's move this a little bit upwards. See, these are the first ones to start falling, and there you go. They are being activated. See how they get activated? This is extremely nice. They start falling, they get the speed on the vertical axis, and they will get activated. So only the edge parts are going to be activated. This is starting to break over here. This is beautiful. This activation method is actually very useful, very fast. Look at this. This is the best part. This is already activated, so these grains are already useful in the simulation because the pieces broke down enough. This is nice. Look at this. Okay. So then what I'm doing here is to, hey, if you're active 0, pinned to animation 1, stop 1, if else 0 and 0. So basically, if they are not activated, they will just move with animation. And this height fill, this is my height fill. This has a bound. This is a match fill, match size. And what I'm doing here is to just extend the box a little bit. I'm grouping this and I'm blasting my ground. So basically, I'm just adding a little bit ground here to create a new collider. And this is the mountain. This is going to be my collider on this specific wedge. My wedge is, well, this one. And where are my boxes? Big box. There we go. This and this. This is the place which everything is going on. And these are my sources, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. These are my grains. Okay, they are here. So these are my grains, which will be always animated. And let's dive into my grain simulation. This might look like complex, but it is fairly simple. Vellum object, nothing, Vellum solver. I change this and this and this so it doesn't explode all over the place. This is the repulsion and this is the attraction. So we can have nice chunks falling down. That's about it, nothing else. My Vellum source, I have my subpath and my target path, which is what I'm injecting, which is this one, and it's also animated, so it's also following the animation, nothing else. This is another source, which is my emitter, which we created before, and this is I'm going to group it. If it's in group enable emitter. So this is what's going on. Then go to this solution. This is very nice. Let me just show you here. And this solver, what I'm doing here is grabbing the actual geometry and transferring. I'm transferring from the Heightfield null 1, which is this one, which is my activation. I'm copying to the based on that and based on constant. I don't know where I got this constant. Where did I got this constant group from? Interesting. Group constant. Oh, I call this constant right here. I forgot I teach that. Okay, this is the group. I'm filtering the group, and I'm also killing everything which is not in the kill chamber, which is the kill chamber, everything that's near the ground. So it wasn't the color, it was a kill chamber. So if they go below this, they will get eventually just blasted, and also if they are not in the frustrum of the camera, they will get deleted. Then what I'm also doing is all the meters are having a force of -4 and all the constant of -9.8. It's just a tiny difference, so we can see more of a more interesting behavior. Each frame I'm going to add age of 0.1, and that's it. This is for the growth. So once this begins, you will see these, they are small, and with the age they will start to become bigger. From 0 to 0.4 they will go from 0 to 1, and the CD is, well, the CD represents the P scale. This is not useful. I'm going to then just delete all but the velocity, AD, and P scale, because that's all I need. Delete all the groups and save this to disk. And this is how it looks. See, they get bigger, and if we go further into some place where it's more distraction, let's see, this is a very big wedge, because this is the first one. Or I'm grabbing everything. Oh no, I'm grabbing all the wedges. So let's go to the custom, only to this one. Let's delete this. So this is only one of the wedges. As you can see, it is falling beautifully, extremely beautiful. This is insane, the amount of detail we have here, and this will be enough for our renders. Okay guys, so we are back, and in this time we are at the stage. Now this is the whole process. You will notice that I divided this into layers, this being my background, this being my midground, and this being my foreground. All of them contain roughly the same lighting. We can see all of them together here, which is not the idea because it's very expensive to load. And then with a simple switch and the use of these takes, we will be dividing the shot. These are all the materials, these are all the lightings, and these are the render geometry settings. So, but let's begin from the very top. So, to begin with, we have to load a couple of things. The background, let's start with the background. So, once the background is loaded with the geometry I selected, remember this is just a sub import, and this is the back geometry, which is our mountain we created, and this is the Titan which we deformed at the very beginning of the tutorial. Then we added a Karma fog box. This Karma fog box, it has a density of 0.0001 because the scale is enormous, it's huge, and from the camera I only wanted to have some bit of fog around this area. These are all the settings. There's nothing particularly nice or extreme about this. These are the clouds, and these are the clouds BDB. We will need to hop into a new setup, which I'm going to show you right now for this. So these are the clouds. Let's hop in and let's see what happens. So the sky is somewhat easy. As you can see, this is the sky. We can add a couple of lights to see a little bit better. But basically what I'm doing is grabbing a cube, a really big cube on the area what I want. I use from my effects, I use this as my reference, which is my Titan. This is it. And now if I turn this on and I also go to the clouds and move this here, we'll see this is the reference I used. I use a frustrum from the camera, which now that I see should have been time shifted. Yeah, this should have been time shifted. Otherwise it's going to load each frame, and we do not want that. So frame 101 is what we want. What we did here is with this frustrum from the camera, which is this one, we then transform this where I wanted, and we add a sky. The sky has these settings. It has 20 multiplied by 0.8, which is 16. This is the amount of density, it's very low. I moved some sliders here and there. And this is the noise amplitude and the noise element size. Remember, this is huge. The size is huge, so the numbers will be huge. This is everything I changed for this display. You can see how this looks. Remember, try to do this in lower resolution first. Like, for example, multiplying this by a factor of 2. Now you can play around with these settings way better. And there are just some minor clouds, nothing to worry about. So what I did here is to resample this a lot less, so I only have 52,000, because then what I want to do is to do a lattice from this volume. I want to have a point right on top of this character, which is going to determine the density or the distance. In fact, this is remapped to distance 2, and this original element is set to dist. So we have the distance, which is this one, and we also have the distance 2, which is this one. In this case, we will only be using this, the second one, this one. But I also wanted to try a little bit more with this. What I'm doing here is to just add an upwards cone in this position, which is the same as the point, roughly. And the capture length is 500 meters with this rotation. What this is going to do, let me just lower the resolution here. What this is going to do, or achieve, is some sort of swirl here, right? So you can play around with this. There we go, see? We can do 100 degrees. I'm just moving the smoke a little bit right here. And I'm going to go back to 1. And this is how it looks. Very nice. So then I created another sky, roughly the same settings, and then I transform it somewhere else, a little bit on top of it. Then I did another box to cover this area, another sky, another box to cover a little bit more, another sky, another box, and another sky. All of them together will leave us with this, which is our sky. Nice. So now that we know how to do our clouds, we're going to merge all of these together in stage. Look how fast this is moving. Very, very cool to have this. And what I'm doing this is cloud surface. So this is what I have here, which is just a grid with a bunch of points. Transform it where I want it. And this mask will be used to then blast this and add a little bit of alpha on top of this, which will be used as a cloud system on top of our render with a couple of layers just to make it a little bit more obvious, and a rotation, of course, in each 90 degrees. And regardless of this cloud surface, which I do have here, which was meant to be for my main ground, I'm not really using it, so you can just either use it if you want or unplug it. I will choose for just unplugging it, and I will going to leave this in case you want to use it. So now, how does this look? We will see in a moment. Let's load every other component on the other layers. So my other layers are the RVD out. Remember, we had an out and an in, which was the surface and interior, basically. So those two things are going to be loaded. As you can see, this is fully loaded. And there is a nice thing I want to show you. Not the geometry spreadsheet, but no, not this. You have to go into Solaris, right here it is, in here. Now, once you go here, you will notice that the naming we chose is respected perfectly, and we do have all the groups. Now, how do you read these groups? You will be asking. Basically, if you go into the import data, you go to subset groups and you just check in all of them. So always remember that some things will be having groups and you might want to actually import them. In this case, we do not have, but just in case, I always try to import all the groups. Now, in this case, we do have a couple of groups. We can select them easily, shade them easily, but this is easily imported. Why only a name? Because if you were to grab all of the names differently, even though it's how it should be done, I'm not saying it's not, on the contrary, it will take a while for the computer. And I didn't actually need them for the crypto maths. Now, remember the rocks? Well, the rocks are just the object merge of the rocks high, which we created in subs. And we have a rock instancer. The way this rock instancer works is the same as the copy the points. It's a little bit confusing, I'm not going to lie, but essentially what you want to do is to use the out particles from to stage, which are the points we saved into disk, right? And then we're going to use this code, right? This code, which basically means that every single primitive which is loaded on top on the first input is going to be used, and the index attribute is going to be variant. We can check right here. We click and we go into the primvers, I believe. Yeah, into the what it is. There is a primver class and there's a primver variant. As you can see, 0 and 1, and it will be just as the copy to points in subs. This is very fast to load, in fact, inside Solaris. Just remember that we have a lot of points. We are talking about a couple of millions, if I'm not mistaken. And at the end, we will just be loading the dirt. I decided to use a subcreate in this case, which is the same as the subimport, but I don't know, inside here. And then we're going to be merging all of this together. These are the debris and the rocks together. If we merge this with the collision or the destruction, it's going to look something like this. Now look at this beauty. Isn't it looking extremely nice? Now this is what we're talking about. And finally, but not less important, in fact, I think it's the most important thing, is the smoke. And the smoke is just, well, the smoke. And we're loading it with the rest. You'll see everything is starting to load. And these are our smoke simulations. They are just boxes at the moment. So that's for the middle ground. And for the foreground, well, this is on another node, which I'm going to show you right now. Which is very simple, but it has nothing to do with the tutorial itself. So what I did initially is just to place a bunch of cubes somewhere like this. Then I edited a couple of them and I transformed it where I need it. In this case, it was near the camera. Let's just load this. There we go. And let's close this stage, which is going to be a pain in the ass. There we go. So if you go to the camera, this is how I want this to be looking. I edited a couple of them here and there. I blasted a lot of them in different positions. Then I BDB from polygons, this, smoothing, converting, mask by feature and a mountain. The mask by feature is just an ambient occlusion, and I'm using the mask because this is called a mask. Let's visualize this one. As you can see, it's just a multiplier. And I'm converting this back to BDB again. And I'm adding a volume bop with a couple of noises. And the noises is just something like this. A turbulent noise added to the position, to the volume sample of the first input. And this is the surface, which is the SDF, and output to the surface. These are the settings. Nothing particularly amazing. And then I save this as shown here. I blasted a couple of this, or a couple of points I didn't like. I moved this one. Then I reattached a couple of things. And I basically cached this with an measured curvature. This is going to be useful for the rendering. Then I also added a ground. As you can see, this is the grid. This is the mask. If we click on mask, oh, okay. I think I have to ricochet the strokes. Okay, they are not working. Okay, this got broken in one of the files, but I'm going to replace it later on. Then, with an attribute noise on the mask, I'm scattering a lot of points. I'm frustrating these points. I'm with a time shift, and I'm converting. I'm combining this with the previous SDF we created to have some points. This is a difference, and I'm smoothing this conversion. And now we're going to have a bunch of little spheres. There we go. And if you merge these two, this is how it looks. Very nice. And this is how it would look with the water on top of this surface, which is just a mask. I'm blasting the mask based on the value. This is exactly what I was aiming for. So let's go back into the stage. This is the cave, as in subs. And these are some occluders I created for the lights. This is the cave, the occluders. This is the water on the ground and the droplets on the surface. Lovely. So with this switch, what I was doing, I'm going to set this to manual. And you will see that every time I go to one take on another, this index changes, because when you create a take with this and then you select and then you have the auto takes on, everything you do only happens on that take. As you can see, this works in the background. These lights do not work, but on the foreground they do work. That's how it. Then I import in the camera. Let's stay with the middle ground. But just before going there, I'm going to delete a couple of rocks. From the RVD, which is this one. I want to see this. This should be set to auto update. And let's delete a couple of rocks. Let's do shift click. And with this selection, press delete on the viewport, of course. Delete. And let's invert this selection. Again, I'm on the main ground. I should be on main. Let's select this again because I messed up. Press enter. There we go. So we only have a little piece being translated, and it's way faster for us. So let's go back into the stage, and while we are here, I'm going to just turn off everything I don't want to use right now. So I don't want to have anything to do with the background. I don't want to have anything to do with these emitters. I just want to have the RVD in and out, and I do not want to have anything to do with this. They will be merged here. This is what I want. So if you go into the camera, you will be able to see this from the camera. We can render geometry settings. This is the only thing I changed is the dicing, nothing else. And we can start to add materials: clouds, mountain, rocks, cave, and smoke. The only material I'm using here right now is the mountain material, which is the most complex. All of these on a Karma subnetwork. And well, let's begin. Don't get dizzy with this. So let's see what's going on here. We have a couple of things. On the mountain materials, we have all of related to the middle ground. My mountain 2 and my mountain. What's the difference? Well, the difference is that on one instance, this is working. As you can see, if I go here on my out and then on my in, we have the same shader roughly, but one is working on the surface and one is working on the interior. So what's going on? You will see that on this, which is called sand, which is not sand, this one doesn't have displacement. This is the top. The only thing I'm doing here, let's go into the karma, because I believe we can see this right now. If we go in right about here, I believe it's initializing. It will initialize fast because we don't have that much geometry. So in the meantime, let's go into, okay, we can actually drop this to 0. So it's way faster. And there are a couple of things working. Let's see while this loads. So to begin with, I'm grabbing the UVs because this has a UV. I'm adding nothing, but I do want to have it. And I'm multiplying this by a factor so it actually increases in size. I'm using this image set to color, which is just a texture of the ground right here. And I'm adding a little bit of noise in case I wanted to add like a color correction here. This won't do anything. We can turn this off. And then I'm mixing this with what? This is the object position, which is basically something like the rest position. And I'm adding nothing, multiplying by this factor and adding another texture. This texture is an albedo. It's a tree-planar albedo. This won't really do anything to us because this is basically being overridden by outside, basically the top. This material is just for the top. So if this is outside equals to 1, which is a value we created, it means that basically this is useless. This can be turned off and it would be identically, as you can see. And also this can be identically turned off. This is the same. It's a simple color correction. We can increase the saturation a lot or decrease it. I don't remember the value and it doesn't want to go back. There we go. The material is a simple basic material. Nothing is going on here. There is just a specular roughness. The specular roughness is doing exactly the same. This is outside. This mixture can just be turned off. These two guys can be turned off. It won't do anything. This is the UV again with a vector to increase the resolution so they match. They are from the same texture file. And this is a power to increase or decrease the roughness, which in this case I'm only setting this to 1. And this is the material. See, extremely easy. Now the second material has the same texture, but since it's using the same texture, this is why we started using this. We started using this to differentiate the top from the bottom. So it is now that we have to add this back again here and back this again here. Basically, I'm using the object position, which is basically the rest. I'm mixing within the outside. This is the inside, as you can see. This is the inside and this is the outside. And I'm multiplying this by something which I'm not. And now we have the texture from the bottom and texture from the top. Now this is the displacement. This is the displacement, guys. But what did I do? I grabbed my rest position because I don't want my geometry to move. I use this one here, but I could have also used it like this. As you can see, it should be the same. Yes, as you can see, it's the same. I would have preferred this to be like this, so it's more organized. And what I'm doing is adding a value. I'm multiplying it by another value just in case, and I'm having a noise with these values. Then I'm adding the original rest position. So it's like I'm distorting the UVs. Then I'm adding more noises, adding them noises again to change the position. I'm distorting the UVs of the actual position. And I'm using the mask. Remember, guys, the mask was supposed to be this. So if I were to just inject this into the base color, you will notice this is the mask. This is what we had before. And I'm multiplying my noise by the mask. So everything that's on the top, it will be just dark. And I'm multiplying this by another value. Then I'm just adding a value, multiplying this by a certain value, and using a tree planar, which is a texture. This is a displacement map from a roughness, I believe. No, it's a displacement map from a texture. Yes, a displacement. I'm using this to increase the contrast. I'm multiplying both of them, and this is now my displacement. This is how it would be looking if it were to be on the base color. See, this is going to displace our geometry. Displacement, and this is the base color. So this is done. We can see this with a little bit of dicing now. Let's go to 0.5, which is standard. And we will see that displacement will come out of only the ground. See, now we have a little bit of displacement and it's fading towards the top. So if we move here, there's pretty much nothing here because this got deleted. And you will see that this, which is called Titan, which is not, is for the back. But it's basically the same deal as these textures right here. It's just an object position. The Titan, of course, doesn't really move. Then it's adding a vector, multiplying, triplanar with some textures, more noises, and mixing these guys at the top and this at the bottom, which are just some other textures layer. Like I have a texture and I have another texture and I reveal one with a noise. That's all I'm doing, and I'm using the same specular roughness right here for the displacement. And I actually do not have a base color, it's just a gray color. I didn't need anything else. And these are my smokes. You can see how these are created on my previous tutorial. It is basically just a density connected into a power, multiplied with a constant, and then again multiplied with another constant, which is a color here. And this is how they are connecting to the absorption and scattering to add either color and or scattering capabilities. These are on the smoke and these are the smoke fix. I didn't use a smoke fix at the end, I just stayed with this one. And the rocks are just this is just a simple material. So if we load all of these together, it would be looking something like this. See the rocks right here with their shadows. This is the ground at the bottom. Very nice, very nice. So let's turn this off in the meantime, and let's go with our foreground. Let's see what happens. So in order to see the foreground properly, we need to go into the light mixer, because we need to have these cave lights, and we need to see this from the camera. You will see this is just a simple scenery. If you go into the K materials, you will see that it's just a material position with multiplication. This is a triplanar with, if I'm not mistaken, yes, a displacement with a concavity. The concavity is being remapped to 1 to 0 and is multiplying. So I'm only going to be having specular roughness in all the colors, but inside these crevices, as you can see. And then with the power function set to 2, I'm using this as a displacement. If we add more dicing, it will be looking way better. For the water, I'm just using a specular with the settings and a transmission set to 1, but also the depth set to 1. I'm using a combination of these two with a nice color to add this effect on the water. And for the water droplets, it's similar, but the transmission color is different. If we were to add more dicing, the quality of this will bump up a lot. Look at the bottom right corner. See, the lights are already, or the highlights are already way different. So how do I color this if the color is just a constant? Well, I colored it with the light. I added a gobo with a texture. The texture is just a roughness map with an exposure of 1 and a blur of 1. Then I added a couple of lights. Let's look for these lights. They are actually very, very tiny lights pointing to where I want. And this creates the effects if you go into the spotlight. And then if you go into the light filters and select the gobo. I did this 3 times with 3 different colors to create this effect. Look at this, I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to turn this off. See, they're just lights, there's nothing else. And finally, let's visualize our background. So our background is this. Let's just, yeah, it's looking something like that. And if we choose this to be the background, you will see that if you go here, the clouds are now way nicer. Why? Because in the limits, I set the volume limits to 3, so more light goes through. So going back again into this, I'm not going to show any more rendering. I want to just talk to you about the light mixer. Light mixer is a really nice tool to control these settings a little bit. I just did this. Basically what I did is to drag a couple of lights here, and you can control the settings of these colors, for example, and the exposure of these. I just do it for that. On the light linker, I used to have a really huge reflection here, which I basically use this for the background ring light, and I just disable it for the Karma Fog and the mountain back, so I don't have any more impact on these mountains. And the cloud material, as you can see, I decided, if I'm not mistaken, let me have a look, to use the volume shader core. It's another way to shade clouds. And then I have the rock material, which is just basically a copy paste from what I used to have on the other section. And the dirt is similar with a couple of tone variations, as you can see, nothing else. And the smoke materials are actually empty here, which because I'm not choosing to add anything, which is a lie, because this is actually pointing to our material network, which is here. And this cloud is what I'm using. I'm using this smoke. This is another way to use materials. This is the cloud, which I actually got from the material palette. I just drag the cloud material, which is where it is. Here, I drag this cloud to the right, and then I select it. And that's about it. Then I just did a test render. This is the foreground. I'm using CPU. This is the on advanced. I decided to go into bucket and also path trace it with these settings. I am having all my AOBs, my diffuse AOBs, my reflection AOBs, my volume AOBs, my albedo on every single one of these. And on the rendering, on the limits, I'm setting this to 4 and 3. Because I do want to have a really nice amount of bounces, so I can have everything brighten up a little bit. And this was basically the whole tutorial. I hope that you enjoyed the effects section and that you at least grasped what having I know this format of Solaris, which I'm kind of new to building. And it's different from the old Maya outliner like world and scene assemble. So anyways, hope you like it. Well guys, if you watch all this tutorial, wow, 2 hours and almost 3 hours, amazing. So yeah, if you have any comments, please leave a like, subscribe. I will be always